The Autobiography of Benjamin Franklin, Part 3. Context and Lost Papers. Franklin begins Part 3 in August 1788. Writing from his home in Philadelphia, he notes that many of his papers were lost during the war. The Great Project. Franklin details an ambitious and far-reaching endeavor he envisioned. He quotes a scrap of paper from May 1731. The project focuses on how parties' collective efforts shape significant world events, rather than individual actions. Franklin believes that if one person can achieve much, many working together can achieve even more. United Party for Virtue. Franklin envisions a united party for virtue. This party would promote goodness in the world. Its religious creed emphasizes doing good to fellow humans. Initially open to young single men, they would undergo a virtue cycle before joining. Optimism and challenges. Franklin's optimism about people's goodness contrasts with his skepticism about institutions like the Presbyterian Church. Despite his conviction, the party never materialized. He reiterates his belief that one capable person can create significant change. Publication of Almanac, Poor Richard's Almanac. In 1732, Benjamin Franklin released his almanac, famously titled Poor Richard's Almanac, using the pseudonym Richard Saunders. The almanac aimed to be both entertaining and useful. It contained proverbs meant to instruct the common people and brought Franklin financial success. Newspaper instruction. Franklin used his newspaper to educate the public. He reprinted excerpts from Samuel Johnson's Spectator and wrote instructive pieces. He avoided printing libel or gossip and refrained from including private altercations. Expanding to Charleston, South Carolina. In 1733, Franklin sent an employee to Charleston, where there was no printer. He provided the man with a press and letters, entering into a partnership agreement. Initially, the accounts were poorly managed, but the Dutch widow took over and improved them significantly. Support for preacher Hemphill. In 1734, Irish preacher Hemphill arrived in Philadelphia. Franklin attended his practical and moral sermons. Despite opposition from Orthodox Presbyterians, Franklin defended Hemphill and advocated for him. Hemphill's sermons. Hemphill, a preacher, had not written his own sermons but had memorized those of others. Many of Hemphill's supporters abandoned him due to this revelation. Franklin, however, continued to support Hemphill, believing it was better to receive well-composed sermons from others than poorly crafted ones. After Hemphill's defeat, he left the congregation, and Franklin did not join it either. Language studies. In 1733, Franklin began studying languages. He learned French, Italian, and Spanish. Returning to Latin, he discovered he remembered more than he thought and resumed studying it. Franklin recommends that Americans prioritize practical modern languages before classical ones, as the former aids in learning the latter. Reconciliation with Brother James. After 10 years away from Boston, Franklin visited his relations. He reconciled with his brother James, a printer, despite past differences. James, in ill health, asked Franklin to care for his young son and widow if he passed away. James did die, and Franklin adopted the boy, seeking to make amends for leaving his brother's employment. Loss of his young son to smallpox. In 1736, Benjamin Franklin tragically lost one of his young sons to smallpox. He emphasizes the importance of vaccination for children and advises everyone to avoid the same mistake he made. Expansion of the Junto. The Junto, a popular club founded by Franklin, grew significantly. To prevent exceeding their agreed-upon membership limit of 12, new branches were formed. These additional branches operated under different names and were beneficial to the original members. Franklin's political career. Despite opposition, Franklin was chosen as the clerk of the General Assembly in 1736. The position allowed him to print the votes and laws. Interestingly, Franklin befriended a man who initially opposed him by asking the man to lend him a book. He believed that kindness begets kindness. Colonel Spotswood's offer and Franklin's advantage. Colonel Spotswood, the former governor of Virginia and postmaster general, was dissatisfied with his Philadelphian deputies' accounting in 1737. He offered the postmaster position to Benjamin Franklin, who accepted it. This opportunity was a significant advantage for Franklin in his business endeavors. Franklin's reforms in public affairs. After becoming the postmaster in Philadelphia, Franklin turned his attention to public matters. He began by reforming the City Watch, which was an early form of a police group. Previously, paying to avoid watch duty was profitable for the constable, but Franklin adjusted the rate to alleviate the burden on the poor. Graduated income/property tax proposal. Franklin proposed a more effective watch system, emphasizing hiring dedicated individuals rather than relying on common citizens taking turns. He also suggested levying a tax proportionate to a person's property. This proposal introduced one of the first graduated income/property taxes in the colonies, establishing the first fireman company. Franklin further proposed creating the first company of firemen. 30 men were assigned to keep leather buckets and other equipment in good order for firefighting. The institution's utility was evident, and while many wanted to join, Franklin advised them to form their own group, the Union Fire Company. At the time of his writing, the fire company formed by Benjamin Franklin, known as the Union Fire Company, still existed and had flourished. The company had acquired fire engines, ladders, firehooks, and other useful implements. Remarkably, between the company's founding and Franklin's writing, the city never lost more than 1 or 2 houses to fire at a time. Reverend Whitefield's arrival in Philadelphia. In 1739, Reverend Whitefield, a traveling Irish preacher, arrived in Philadelphia. Local preachers disliked him, but multitudes attended his services, reflecting the growing religious fervor in the colonies. Franklin proposed building a meeting hall open to preachers of all faiths, and funds were promptly raised for this inclusive project. Whitefield's orphanage proposal. Reverend Whitefield moved to Georgia, where many orphans suffered due to the hardships faced by settlers. Whitefield proposed building an orphanage there. Franklin initially hesitated, believing the orphanage should be in Philadelphia, but after hearing Whitefield speak, he generously donated all the money in his pockets. Other congregation members were similarly moved. Franklin's view of Whitefield. Despite doubts about Whitefield's integrity, Franklin considered him an upright man. They had a civil, non-religious friendship. Franklin shared an anecdote about Whitefield's powerful voice, estimating that 30,000 men could hear him at once. He also noted the advantage of itinerant preachers performing their sermons multiple times. Whitefield's writing and printing. Benjamin Franklin notes that Reverend Whitefield's writing and printing allowed his enemies to attack his points at their leisure. Franklin suggests that Whitefield's supporters would have been more numerous if he had never written anything at all. Franklin's growing business and partnerships. Franklin's business was continually growing, and his circumstances improved daily. Money itself was prolific in nature. His Carolina partnership succeeded, and he promoted other workmen, establishing printing houses in other colonies. All partnerships during this period were carried on and ended amicably after a pre-agreed term of 6 years. Challenges in Pennsylvania and Franklin's proposals. Franklin was troubled by the lack of a militia and a college in Pennsylvania. In 1743, he proposed establishing an academy, with the Reverend Mr. Peters overseeing it. The next year, he had more success proposing a philosophical society. Establishing a militia. Franklin believed it wise to establish a militia due to recent conflicts between Spain, France, and Britain. He wrote a pamphlet called Strong Truth in favor of starting a militia. A meeting was held in the meeting house he had built, where attendees signed the pamphlet, signifying their membership. The enlisters soon amounted to 10,000 armed men divided into companies. Military leadership and battery construction. Initially, the Philadelphia Company considered Benjamin Franklin for the role of colonel, but he declined and recommended Mr. Lawrence instead. Franklin proposed a lottery to finance the construction of a defensive battery below the town, which was promptly completed. Later, Colonel Lawrence, Franklin, and others journeyed to New York to borrow cannons from Governor Clinton. Initially, the governor refused, but after becoming more intoxicated during the evening, he allowed them to borrow 18 cannons. Religious influence on militia establishment. The governor of Pennsylvania and council confided in Franklin. Franklin suggested observing a fast day to seek God's blessing for establishing their militia and ensuring future success. The clergy encouraged their sect members to join the association. Challenges with Quakers. Establishing a militia among the numerous Quakers posed difficulties due to their doctrine of passivity. Despite advice to step down from his assembly position, As Quakers held a majority, Franklin remained steadfast and was re-elected unanimously. Quaker stance on military funding. An anecdote highlights Quaker attitudes toward military spending. During a fire company meeting discussing funding for military defenses, only one Quaker opposed, while others abstained by not attending, indirectly allowing the proposal to pass. Mr. Logan's approval of defensive war. Mr. Logan, a Quaker, expressed approval of defensive war in an address to the Quakers. He purchased 60 pounds in lottery tickets specifically for the battery project, with the condition that any winnings would be applied to the same expense. Logan recounted a story about William Penn, who permitted a servant to defend his ship without instructing him to go below deck. The Quakers covertly supported necessary military matters, sometimes contributing money labeled for the king's use or for purchasing grain, interpreted as gunpowder. Quaker embarrassments and Dunker modesty. The Quakers faced embarrassment due to their once-published principle that no war was lawful. Franklin recounts an anecdote about the Dunkers, a religious sect. Michael Welfare, one of its founders, preferred not to publish their faith's tenets, believing that God might reveal undisclosed truths to them over time. Franklin considers this modesty within the sect as a unique instance in human history. Franklin's stove invention. In 1742, Franklin invented a stove for better room heating. He wrote and published an account and description of the stove. Governor Thomas offered him a patent, but Franklin declined, prioritizing public benefit over personal gain. An ironmonger in London later patented the stove and profited significantly from it. Publication of proposals for education. After peace was declared between Britain, Spain, and France, Benjamin Franklin turned his attention to establishing an academy. He published a pamphlet titled Proposals Relating to the Education of Youth in Pennsylvania. Franklin actively sought subscriptions to support the academy. Academy formation and trustees. The subscribers to the academy selected 24 trustees. Mr. Francis, the Attorney General, and Franklin were appointed to draft the academy's constitution. The academy officially began in 1749. Academy space and purpose. The initial building for the academy was too small. They repurposed the public meeting house as the new academy space. The stipulation was that it would remain open to preachers of any faith and also serve as a free school for poor children. Franklin's role and university establishment. Franklin supervised the building work cheerfully, having recently partnered with Mr. David Hall at his printing house. The trustees were incorporated by a charter. More land was allocated from the proprietary governors. The institution eventually became the University of Philadelphia, now the University of Pennsylvania. Early roles and promotions. Governor Thomas appointed Franklin to the Commission of the Peace. The city chose him for council, and he became an alderman. Citizens elected him as a burgess to represent them in the assembly. Franklin was pleased with these promotions. Withdrawal from Justice of the Peace position. Franklin gradually withdrew from his role as Justice of the Peace due to his lack of knowledge of common law. His son took over the seat in the House. Commission for Treaty Negotiations. Governor Thomas called for House members to serve as commissioners for a treaty with the Carlisle Indians. Franklin was commissioned and participated alongside the House Speaker. They prohibited Native Americans from drinking until the treaty was finalized. Afterward, the Native Americans became very drunk, apologizing the next day. Franklin observed the destructive impact of alcohol among Native American tribes. Establishment of a public hospital. In 1751, Dr. Thomas Bond proposed creating a public hospital in Philadelphia. Franklin supported the idea by writing about it in newspapers. He suggested a measure in the House to match donations once a substantial sum was reached. Despite initial doubts, the measure was approved, paving the way for the successful construction of the hospital. Fundraising for a Presbyterian meeting house. Reverend Gilbert Tennant sought Franklin's help in obtaining subscriptions for a Presbyterian meeting house. Franklin declined, not wanting to burden his neighbors with too many requests. He advised Tennant to ask everyone for money, even those he thought would give none. Tennant succeeded in raising sufficient funds. Paving streets in Philadelphia. Franklin noticed that Philadelphia lacked paved streets, causing inconvenience. He successfully advocated for paving several streets near the market. To maintain cleanliness, Neighbors paid 6 pence per month to hire someone to remove mud. Eventually, the community accepted a tax to pave all streets. Gas lamps for night lighting. Inspired by Mr. John Clifton's street lamp, people wanted gas lamps for nighttime illumination. Franklin designed an improved lamp with 4 glass panes and a vent at the bottom. Surprisingly, London did not adopt similar vented lamps for cleanliness. Street cleaning proposal. While in London, Franklin suggested sweeping streets when the dust was dry and manageable, rather than waiting for it to turn into thick mud. He proposed having several men sweep the dust during dry seasons, and this idea was implemented. Franklin emphasizes that seemingly small civic matters are significant when viewed collectively. Joint Postmaster General. In 1753, Franklin became Joint Postmaster General. He and his partner improved the office, making it profitable for both themselves and the English king. However, Franklin was later removed from office due to a ministerial mistake. Honorary degree from Harvard. As Postmaster General, Franklin traveled to New England. Harvard College, Cambridge, awarded him an honorary Master of Arts degree in recognition of his achievements in electricity. Diplomatic role in pre-war Congress. In 1754, with the threat of war against France, commissioners from various colonies gathered at Albany. Franklin, along with the Speaker of the House Mr. Norris, joined Thomas Penn and Secretary Peters as Pennsylvania commissioners. Their role was to confer with Native American chiefs of the 6 nations and offer gifts. Franklin's plan for colonial union. While traveling to Albany, Benjamin Franklin proposed a plan to unite all colonies under one government for defense. He presented this plan to the Congress, and other commissioners had similar proposals. Franklin's plan was preferred and recommended. Nevertheless, colonial assemblies refrained from adopting it, suspecting a hidden agenda behind the proposal. British alternative and taxation. The Board of Trade rejected Franklin's plan. Instead, an alternative plan was adopted. Governors would draw funds from Great Britain's treasury for defense expenses. Colonies would later repay these expenses through taxes. The imposition of these taxes following the French and Indian War became a major catalyst for the American Revolution. Governor Morris tenure. Franklin discusses Mr. Morris, who succeeded James Hamilton as governor of Pennsylvania. Morris frequently disputed with the Assembly over civic matters, but maintained a friendly relationship with Franklin. In the end, Morris stepped down from his role, following in the footsteps of his predecessor Hamilton. Disputes over taxes and hereditary governors. James Hamilton and Morris clashed with the Assembly in Pennsylvania over hereditary governors. These governors refused to allow taxes unless their own estates were exempted. The Assembly resisted this injustice, but Captain Denny, Morris's successor, eventually compelled the Assembly to yield. Governor Morris and Franklin's assistance. During Governor Morris's term, the French and Indian War erupted. Massachusetts Bay planned an attack on Grown Point and sought help from New York and Pennsylvania. Mr. Quincy, a solicitor from Pennsylvania, approached Franklin for assistance. Franklin managed to pass a bill offering £10,000 through the House. However, the governor insisted on a clause protecting the estates of proprietary governors. Franklin cleverly obtained the funds from the loan office, bypassing the governor's dissent. Mr. Quincy's esteem for Franklin. Despite the governor's objections, Mr. Quincy returned to Massachusetts satisfied with the outcome. He held Franklin in high esteem and friendship for his resourcefulness. General Braddock's arrival. The British sent General Braddock to the American colonies with 2 regiments of English troops. He landed in Alexandria, Virginia, and marched to Fredericktown, Maryland, where he awaited carriages. Franklin's role. Benjamin Franklin advised Braddock on procuring carriages from the governors. Franklin and his son William met with the general in Fredericktown. Wagon shortage and Franklin's efforts. Braddock's men secured only 25 wagons out of the needed 150. Franklin drafted terms to encourage farmers in Pennsylvania to lend wagons to the army. He personally vouched for payment if wagons were lost or destroyed. Within 2 weeks, Franklin secured 150 wagons, horses, and drivers. Supply challenges. Returning to Braddock's camp, Franklin addressed the troops' lack of necessary supplies. He arranged for food and goods, including sugar, cheese, butter, wine, coffee, and rice. Gratitude and underestimation. General Braddock appreciated Franklin's assistance. However, Braddock underestimated Native American forces. Franklin tried to offer advice, but Braddock dismissed it. Native American massacre and Braddock's defeat. Franklin recounts how Native Americans massacred Braddock's troops after they crossed a river and were in a large mass. All wagons, provisions, artillery, and stores were abandoned to the enemy as the scattered army fled. Franklin suggests that news of Braddock's defeat alarmed Colonel Dunbar, who fled with his army to Philadelphia. This event marked the first sign that Americans had overestimated the prowess of British regulars. Contrasting behavior, Americans versus French allies. Franklin highlights the contrast between the army's behavior, robbing inhabitants during marches, and that of the Americans' French allies during the Revolution. The French acted impeccably and caused no complaints. General Braddock's papers and Franklin's recommendations. The French published some of General Braddock's papers, revealing British hostile intentions before the war. These papers contain notes highly praising Franklin and recommending him. Unfortunately, due to the campaign's failure, these recommendations never benefited Franklin. Franklin's requests and General Shirley's intervention. Franklin had asked Braddock not to enlist more of the Americans' bought servants and to discharge those already enlisted. Braddock complied, but Colonel Dunbar refused the same request. When wagon lenders sought payment for lost wagons, General Shirley intervened by setting up commissioners to examine claims and order payment. Firework display and prudence. Men approached Franklin in Philadelphia before Braddock's defeat with a subscription paper to raise money for a celebratory firework display after Braddock's anticipated victory. Franklin advised prudence and suggested waiting until victory was secured. Defense funding and voluntary militia. Governor Morris intensified efforts to secure money from the Assembly for provincial defense. The Assembly initially withheld funds due to the injustice of proprietary governors not paying taxes. Eventually, British friends pressured the proprietary governors to pay the tax. Franklin was appointed to allocate defense funds, approximately £60,000. He proposed a bill to establish a voluntary militia and wrote a dialogue advocating for it. Frontier defense. Governor Morris asked Franklin to lead Pennsylvania's northwestern frontier defense against enemies. Franklin accepted, enlisted over 500 men, and constructed forts. His son William served as his aide-de-camp. Bethlehem's preparedness. Franklin and his troops departed from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Despite the supposedly pacifist community, Bethlehem was exceptionally well prepared for defense. Franklin emphasizes that common sense, aided by present danger, can override whimsical opinions. Fort construction and armed assistance. Franklin sent men to build forts along the Minnesink River. He personally resolved to visit Gnadenhut, where Native Americans had already destroyed a fort and killed many town inhabitants. Before leaving Bethlehem, 11 farmers sought guns from Franklin to retrieve their stolen cattle from Native Americans. Unfortunately, 10 of these farmers were killed because their weapons failed to discharge in the rain. Fort completion and observation. At Gnadenhut, Franklin and his men built huts and buried the dead. Despite adverse weather, they completed a fort within a week. Franklin observed that busy engagement improved men's behavior and temper. They patrolled the area, noting how Native Americans concealed their presence. Preaching strategy and command transfer. Franklin coordinated with the chaplain to preach before men received their daily rum allotment. A letter from the governor prompted Franklin's return to Philadelphia for assembly duties. He delegated command to Colonel Clapham, experienced in conflicts with Native Americans. Moravian marriages. While in Bethlehem, Franklin learned about the Moravians, a religious sect that had settled there. He inquired about Moravian marriages and whether they were determined by lot rather than free choice. The practice was partially true. Generally, elders consulted to make suitable matches, but lots were used in specific cases. The response acknowledged that both arranged and self-chosen marriages could lead to happiness or unhappiness. Military appointment and etiquette breach. Upon returning to Philadelphia, Franklin found the war efforts progressing well. The militia officers chose him as colonel of the regiment, and he accepted. However, Franklin unintentionally offended the proprietor general when his men escorted him out of town with drawn sabers, a courtesy not extended to the proprietor during his visit. Declining military promotion. Governor Morris proposed promoting Franklin to general, but Franklin declined. He didn't view his military abilities as highly as the governor did. Scientific pursuits. Franklin paused his war narrative to discuss scientific achievements. He learned about electric experiments in Boston and recreated them in Philadelphia using a glass tube gifted by Mr. Collinson. Promotion of experiments. Franklin had additional glass tubes made in Philadelphia. Mr. Kinnersley, a neighbor, became a prominent experimenter encouraged by Franklin. Franklin wrote to Mr. Collinson about the success of these experiments. Initially, the Royal Society paid little attention to the reports. Lightning and electricity paper. Franklin authored a paper for the Royal Society, linking lightning with electricity. The paper was initially met with laughter. Dr. Fothergill had it printed in a small book. Count de Buffon later translated it into French. European recognition. Abbé Nollet, a French theoretician on electricity, doubted an American's work, Franklin's. Nollet criticized Franklin in letters. Franklin chose not to respond, as his experiments were reproducible without correspondence. Franklin's book was translated into multiple languages and widely accepted by European scientists. Famous experiment. Franklin's book gained fame when M. Delors performed the proposed lightning experiment for the French king and court. Franklin refrains from further elaborating on experiments in his autobiography, as historical accounts cover them. Recognition of Franklin's experiments. News of Benjamin Franklin's successful experiments in France reached the Royal Society in London. A summary of Franklin's papers was published, and the Academy rectified their previous oversight by making him a member of the Society and awarding him the gold medal of Sir Godfrey Copley for the year 1753. Franklin's interaction with Governor Denny. Governor Denny presented Franklin with the medal during a special ceremony in Philadelphia. He assured Franklin of his readiness to assist him. Franklin declined monetary gifts and pledged to support any proposals for the good of the people. Despite disagreements, Denny and Franklin became good friends, and Denny informed Franklin about Ralph, an esteemed political writer in England. Assembly's petition against proprietaries. Frustrated with the proprietaries, the Assembly decided to petition the king. They appointed Franklin as their agent for this purpose. Although they sent a bill granting funds to the king, the governor refused to ratify it due to proprietary interests. Philadelphia and Lord Loudon's intervention. Franklin prepared to travel to London and booked passage on a ship. However, Lord Loudon arrived in Philadelphia to mediate between Franklin, representing the Assembly, and Governor Denny. Despite Franklin's efforts, Lord Loudon sided with the governor. Franklin advised the Assembly to draft a new bill aligning more closely with the proprietary governor's instructions, which Governor Denny subsequently ratified. Meanwhile, Franklin's ship departed for London with his belongings, resulting in significant personal loss. Journey delays in New York. Undeterred by the setbacks, Franklin proceeded to New York to find another ship for his journey to London. He arrived in April but faced delays until almost June due to ships awaiting letters from Lord Loudon. Despite the general's apparent diligence, he was eventually removed from his position due to his ineffectiveness in communication with English ministers. Franklin's own ship was nearly detained to participate in a siege on Louisbourg, a decision that General Shirley, Loudon's predecessor, might have handled more effectively. Critique of General Loudon. Franklin expressed dismay at General Loudon's management of military affairs, questioning how such a person could be entrusted with commanding an entire army. He contrasted Loudon unfavorably with General Shirley, suggesting Shirley would have handled the responsibilities more competently. Franklin believed Shirley was relieved when Loudon took over command, indicating dissatisfaction with Loudon's leadership. Accounts and payment issues. While waiting in New York, Franklin received the accounts for provisions supplied to Braddock's expedition. Despite his efforts, he was unable to receive payment due in part to suspicions that he had misused his position for personal gain, which Franklin adamantly denies. As a result, he never received payment for the provisions he furnished. Ship journey and speed experimentation. Franklin's journey on the ship was initially slow until they reorganized the cargo, after which the ship achieved a speed of 13 knots, considered very fast at that time. Franklin highlights this experience to advocate for the application of scientific experiments in improving ship design and cargo distribution, believing that sailing could benefit greatly from becoming more systematic. Near shipwreck and lighthouse advocacy. During their approach to the port of Falmouth, Franklin recounts a close call with shipwreck when the watchman failed to spot a lighthouse. This incident reinforced Franklin's belief in the importance of lighthouses and spurred his advocacy for their construction in America. They safely arrived at Falmouth the following morning. In conclusion, Part 3 of The Autobiography of Benjamin Franklin chronicles Franklin's experiences with governmental affairs, challenges with military provisions, and reflections on maritime innovations. It highlights his persistent advocacy for practical reforms and his enduring commitment to educational and societal improvement, showcasing Franklin's resilience and vision for a better society.